All right, hello, welcome. We're at my office, and my name is DrCherylMeier. I am a psychologist in my day job. That's one of my books. I have the trauma. Oh, look, this is my most recent one. I'm not like trying to plug. I'm just saying 12 ways to heal from trauma. The Audible ought to be out. I didn't check today if it's out yet. They said it took 10 days to process. It took me, anyway, a long time to record. I recorded the Audible myself, but maybe we'll look at that. It's funny because it's like, what, you didn't plan for us? Well, I look at it like, I have clients that come in here and I don't always know what's going to come up, what we're going to talk about. And so sometimes I figure, there's the sun going down. Let's do the same thing for you, is just set aside this hour. And I'm not saying I'm your psychologist. I'm just saying I've been doing this for over 20 years. And I got my doctorate before that. And so when you're not here, it's like, okay, well, let's see what's going to come up. Well, what's going to come up? Well, I have my own thoughts and reflections about whatever I'm seeing in the world or experiencing internally, or sometimes I see within my clients or with my friends or wherever. Not that I'm analyzing my friends, no. But anyway, so I'm just getting the intuition to go to chapter 3, and I don't remember what chapter 3 is in this. Way 2. So it's 12 ways to heal from trauma. Way 3. Persevere. Okay. All right. So look, when I was teaching this one part of this book, I was just talking about, well, like literally, like in any of these 12 ways that we're learning, if Jesus said, wide is the road to destruction and narrow is this path to enlightenment, to walking in the truth, to walking in the way that we were always designed to walk in. How do we find that way? Well, I've just noticed that Jesus is always living it. He lived it out in his life. Anyone that even doesn't believe in Jesus or anything. Oh, I was talking to a guy this morning a friend that identifies as an atheist. And I'm like, you are not an atheist, But anyway, because he's so much more spiritual than maybe 90+% of my friends that call themselves, a certain faith practice or something. But anyway, anyone, an atheist or whomever, could look at Jesus's life and see by his words and his actions that he is walking this narrow path. He's showing us how to walk in the way that we ought to walk in. He's interacting with people in a way that's not triggered. He's interacting in an intentional way. He's not just, when the religious leaders come and try to question him, he doesn't just answer right away. If you read, see, sometimes people just skip over it, but if you read, like when they had the woman that was caught in adultery and they brought her to him, it said he started writing on the ground as if he didn't hear them. And so that's kind of like, if a certain dignitary or leader of a country or whatever, or his or her workers, came and asked you some questions, and you're meant to be a rabbi, like they called him teacher and rabbi or whatever, and these other people that are very well known in their community, it's a small community, started asking him, hey, so what are you going to do about her? And he just starts writing on the ground. That's highly disrespectful, right? In our mindset of like, you need to be pleasing and like groveling and a yes man and stuff. But it wasn't disrespectful, because what he started doing, well, I mean, it's left a mystery for a reason, right? But it says, finally they asked him again, however many times, and he looks up and he's like, well, whoever of you is without sin, cast the first stone. Maybe they pay attention to what he's written in the sand, and it says they start leaving from the oldest to the youngest. And so some people speculate that he was writing down their own besetting sins, like, when I was 22, I stole this from this person, Mr. Smith or something, and or whatever. But I just got the intuition just now when I was telling you this story. It's like, this is something that actually they recorded happened with Jesus, so it's not just a story. I was thinking that's wonderful that he wrote it in sand to show that like all our sins can be wiped clean, because there's all these Old Testament passages where King David, Jesus is in the lineage of King David, who had Solomon. Solomon was King David's son, so Solomon was this wise man. And he says in Psalm 51, he says, blot out my iniquities, blot out my sins, as if like in the old scrolls in those days, you could just put blotting ink all over and it's like it's all gone. And some people have had near-death experiences or whatever, and they went and talked to Jesus and stuff and saw that their record was blotted out. So I'm hoping that it's like that. I'm hoping that it's wash me and I will be whiter than snow, because sometimes, when you start drawing, it says draw near to God and God will draw near to you. When you start drawing near to the holy, it's like you're drawing near to this purifying fire. And it's not that you're trying to build your egotism out of that. You just don't want anything that's not holy in you anymore. You just have this longing. It's kind of like, I know I'm thinking of two bodybuilders that I know, one of them, like, he's just so muscular and so in tune with his body, and so always ate, like, if he ate meat, it would be like hormone-free animals that, were humanely killed, or I don't know, like he could, ideally we would all eat that if we ate meat, and ideally all meat would be made like that. That would be ideal. That's why I pray over my meals, best I can remember, that God will bless the animals, and that whose lives are not here anymore, and the people that raised them, and all of that stuff. Because but nevertheless, this guy was so in tune. Like, he, if he had, how if you have asparagus, when you go to the bathroom, it smells different. Like, it's kind of like his body was so in tune that, like, he would know, I had 45 blueberries today. Like, I don't know what he would know, but he just was such a clean eater that you become sensitive, like the Princess and the Pea. There's an amazing spiritual truth in the story of the Princess and the Pea. I wonder if I have the Red Fairy book. Like, honestly, I have Scandinavian fairy stories. If we read that story today instead of doing our session, like during our session, like, we might learn 1,000 times more from reading that story. No pressure on me to like deliver us 1,000 times more without that. Let's see if we have it. Hold on. That would be cool if it's in these Scandinavian fairy stories. Oh, Anderson's. I have Anderson's fairy stories. It might be in here. Maybe we'll do that. That would be so fun. I have a client after, but I'm like, instead of feeling like, oh, I had to do more work, you always then ask yourself, am I at ease? Am I at ease in this moment? And it doesn't mean, like, there's a guy named Eckhart Tolle, and he says, like, it doesn't mean you have to change what you're doing. Like, I don't have to stop making these videos for us for free. Like, I still haven't been paid in over 6 years, right? It's kind of hilarious if I talk to people that are like chasing money or whatever, or anybody. They're like, what's the point? Why are you doing that? And it's like, well, do all for the glory of God, right? It's all for the just continuing to give back a percentage of time that's been given to me, and education that's been given to me. Like, I didn't have to pay for all of my education. My parents helped pay for that. And so it's kind of like, yes, I had the desire. I had to go to all those classes. I had to go to 9 years of school to get my doctorate, 4 years of undergrad and 5 years after, and work in Montreal for free for a year to get my internship done, and then get hours, work for another year for free to get hours. I think I might have been paid some, but not much if I got paid at all. And so it's like, that's a lot of years that I put in. And so, but besides that, it's like, so, you want to, it's kind of like if a medical doctor, he or she or a woman or a man went, and just 3 hours a week helped volunteer for people that couldn't afford or whatever. That's kind of how I look at this. So I never looked at it like, yay, I can't wait to make money off of these platforms. But it is weird that, anyway, I won't go into it. So Eckhart Tolle was saying, like, you don't always have to change what you're doing. Like, just stop being bitter. If I'm going to choose to do this, set aside this time for us, then why not enjoy it? I'm always like that. If I'm going to go fast, I don't have my pictures here of my before and after, but I lost 60 pounds in less than 6 months. And naturally, I wasn't on anything. I was just walking about 6 to 8 miles on a treadmill on a uphill 3 days a week. And so I have like my Apple Watch every day, and my you can see my hand on those days because I sent all the information to my trainer so people can see everything I ate. Not that I'll have that logged, I have it with him, but everything I ate and everything that I did to create that to happen. But if I was going to be all bitter about it, then it's like, what's the point? It's important not to be like, oh, well, that's too hard and I'm gonna be bitter about it. No, like, choose to be at ease and be like, all right, let's pretend like I'm training for the Olympics, or, let's really look at the reality of, like, I don't have to go check in a rehab facility or something to take this 1/3 of my body, almost 1/3 of my body off my body, because I didn't know. I didn't have a scale in my house. I didn't know I was 188 pounds. And then I got one once I started because he needed to, keep track of my weight every day. I sent him my chart with the weight on it. And then I got down to 128, and so, I wasn't lying because you see it on my body. Like, but anyway, all that's to say, that's just an example. It doesn't matter. Like, I mean, it matters, but it doesn't matter. And like, we're not getting I don't encourage anyone to get your worth from how awesome you feel or look or whatever in your body according to this world's standards or anyone's standards. Like, it's another temporary thing. It's awesome. It's just like, if I had the I always loved those Mercedes, like, Jeep things, and I didn't know how much they cost. They're like, I think they're like $150,000, right, or something. If someone wanted to just really gift me one of those and I had it outside, I'd be like stoked I get to drive one. I mean, especially like bulletproof. Not that I need bulletproof, but like, it's just such a cool feeling. It's like anyway, so it's like, yeah, you're stoked about it, but you can't build your worth on it because, some hailstorm like in the movie Flash Gordon could happen, and like, you don't have that Mercedes anymore. Like, where's your worth now? Like, anyway, so Jesus said the same thing, or it's in the New Testament somewhere. If it wasn't Jesus that said it, it says or maybe in the Old Testament it says, when your riches increase, don't put your hope in them. Jesus said it like this. He said, do not store up for yourself treasures on earth where a moth can just come in and eat all your clothes, right? A thief can come in and take your stuff from you, or rust can come in and just destroy it because of natural time or the elements or anything like that. Rather, store up your treasures in heaven, where neither thief can come, nor moth can destroy, nor rust can destroy. Because where your treasure is, that's where your heart's going to be. All right? So he's teaching us like this deep mystical truth about your heart. Like, we get this opportunity, this rare opportunity in this world. It's pretty rare. I do this as much as I can, but I'm not trying to be a spiritual glutton. It's just like, but go to this place where your heart can be enlightened and rest and be at ease. You can be at ease. Where that, this is why I wear this. And it's like drop down out of your head and go into your heart, right? I got my red pants on today. And so it's like, all right, so let's see what chapter 3 is, and then maybe we'll get to read the princess and the pea. I don't know if I will, because I know, I don't read copyrighted books, that's why, but if I know that the Anderson's fairy stories, I think that they're already out of copyright. I know they're on Gutenberg, but this computer's not working, or else I would have it right in front of us. I didn't know it was going to come up, and my book's copyrighted, but I'm giving myself permission to quote extensively from it today, as extensively as we would like. It says ask for permission first. So here, for myself, I'm granting it so you guys can get it. But look, so I was teaching about, let's see, in chapter 3, way 3, Persevere. I can look at the beginning of the chapter, I'll say more, but I was talking something about Jesus when he prayed to divine love, to God, his Father, right? He says, not my will be done, but thine, saying, Father, if thou be willing, remove this cup from me. Nevertheless, not my will, but thine be done. That's from Luke 22:42. I was just looking up a verse in Luke 17. In Luke 17, it says, Jesus is saying, for behold, the kingdom of God is within you. What does that mean, But anyway, I was showing this because right next to me, after I'd written that in the book, someone's car had this sticker on it. So I took a picture for us, and it just says, love like Jesus, right? Because Jesus gave all of us this new commandment, a new commandment. And the word in Greek, I took 2 years of ancient Greek. The word, here's my book, here's my Greek Bible. Or this might have been my brother's, like I said before. Oh, we opened up to Luke. See, there's Greek. That's cool. That's where we just were. Anyway, a new commandment. The word for commandment is entele. En my telos. A telos is like a telescope or a telephone, or it's like walk in this direction, in this. So it's not like, here's this new commandment I give you. No, here's this new walk in my way with me, in this direction, in this way, in this amazing, enlightened, beautiful way, where you're not going to get hurt, because your treasure is up in heaven, where no one's going to destroy that. God will always, it says, like he holds our tears in a bottle. Someone said tears are like liquid prayers, right? And I don't mean like when you're crying and continuing to insist that you're a victim and you never choose to move out of that phase. And like, I could have cried and cried for that 60 pounds for another 20 years, because it was just so burdensome to be carrying that on my body. And I didn't know that I was I didn't know consciously that I was doing that to myself, because I didn't think there was a natural way to take it off, you know. So I'm tying these together as like, let's go back to, even when we're hearing Christ recommend to us, like, don't spend all your time and energy storing up things on this earth. We came from somewhere else. We came from love, and we're going back to love. Like, I carry that on my necklace. Look, someone taught me the Star of David was a symbol, a religious symbol before David took it on. And so there's two arrows. We come down here and we die to ourselves. There's the cross. And then we go back up. Like, and there's this balance of being and doing and living on this earth, and, you know, being grounded on this earth, you know, like the cross on the ground, and being connected to the heaven. And they say Jesus's arms open wide is like connecting in the horizontal, you know, with people on this earth. But he says, love as I have loved you. And so that's just like in my book, Love Like Jesus. And I was going to look up intellect, but I don't remember where he's saying. I think in John 14 or 15, so you can look it up yourself. All right, but I'm going to go to the beginning of this chapter. Way 3, persevere, okay? I didn't know I was going to even pick up this book. But I don't know what's going to happen when my you know, client comes in 40 minutes or so from now. I don't know what he or she, I'm not going to identify who's coming in, is going to bring up. I'm just present, and then I was trained to notice the patterns, and so I often will say those out loud and go like, you know, like I would ask myself right now as a psychologist. Now, I'm not doing therapy for you because that's, you know, that's like a, anyway, I can teach you things that I know. But anyway, I always say that it's a disclaimer in my video. But I would ask myself, I carry 60 extra pounds on my body because, you know, and I'll let you know, my mom, when I lost 50 pounds, she got this inspired idea, right? They say follow the inspired ideas because they're coming from a higher place, usually. And so, but we're usually so busy that we don't even listen to that. But my mom's retired, and anyway, she's like, oh, you ought to go by Home Depot or like some, you know, handyman store and pick up a 50-pound bag so you know what that's like, right? And so I went because I had a knowing that my mom's speaking wisdom when she's saying this. And it was like, you know, you have all this stuff to do and you're like, oh, let me add a chore of just going to, you know, a hardware store just to pick up a 50-pound bag, you know. But it's like, no, let's do it. Let's honor my parents. It says honor in Ephesians 6, I think. It says honor. It doesn't mean you're excusing all the things your parents did if they did things in an unconscious way. It just means honor them. It says you will have a long life. But anyway, so I go by the hardware store and I pick up this 50-pound bag, and then it's so heavy and it's like, wait, I would never, as soon as I picked it up, I was like, and then I'm like carrying it to the checkout. And they're like, do you want a cart? Do you want a cart? Because I looked like, you know, now I'm like 128 pounds carrying 50 pounds, right? It is like, and well, I was more than that at that time. I was like 138 because that was 50. You know, anyway, I got to 60 pounds off. But so I'm doing that, and it's like, and I'm like, no, I had this on my body. Oh, that's what I was going to say is I saw that it was only $4.86. So I'm like, I'm buying this thing. I'm taking it home. It's like sand, plaster stuff, whatever. It's like a bag of sand. So, so I'm like taking it to check out and at the self-checkout. And they're like, do you want a cart? Do you want a cart? No, I'm carrying this out to my car. That's what I carried on my body. And so my mom came out to visit, for the holidays. And I'm like, Mom, have a seat on the couch. And she's like, okay. And I brought her this bag of 50 pounds. And I'm like, Mom, this is what, like, so many of us in our family lineage were carrying. Look at how heavy this is. And it didn't hurt her really because she's sitting on the couch, but it was really heavy. And she was like, what are you saying? Whatever. I'm not going to say my mom's dynamics or anything, but it's like, I'm just saying, like, look, I would never tell my best friend or one of my children or even my worst enemy. They call them enemies, but all of our enemies are our teachers. And we don't wish them to be evil. We wish they weren't acting that way in our lives, but greater is he that's in us than he that's in the world that's using these people. But anyway, so our so-called enemies are sometimes mirrors of what's going on, and sometimes they're just being used by that. You can go read Ephesians 6 and see what's going on. Or go, after you watch this, a couple shorts ago, I did this 1-minute video with Christy Jessie, this blonde woman with blue eyes, next to me, and I'm standing there. It was after work, and I was just like, or after I came home from something, and I was like, I want to do a reel of this. And it talks about when people, they're attacking you when they don't take self-responsibility for dealing with their own trauma. They vomit it out on you and are hurting you. But like what Eckhart Tolle says in The Power of Now is like, the more you learn how to walk to this higher place, just like what Jesus was saying, if all your treasure is in heaven and that's where your heart is, then these people will be like, blah, 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 blah. They'll be like a bunch of chickens on the ground and you're flying like an eagle. They're not going to affect you because you're not getting your worth from that. Your egotism's not, and there are systems set up in our world to try to get you to not go to this place, because then you're a free thinker, aren't you? And you're not influenced by people that would try to bribe you because you don't care if you live, on the street in a van down by the river or whatever. It's not going to be like that because you don't think in lack anymore. So that that's not going to be where you end up. But even if it was, like St. Paul said, I've learned to live with lots of things and without lots of things. So like he spent a night and a day out at sea at one point. This is like someone God sent out and called to be his apostle. Like these days, if someone's like, well, I'm a Christian, why would God have me a night and a day out in the sea? Like, God must not be real. And it's like, nope. Part of your purifying process and part of your training to see how the enemy tries to take you down and take down your purpose here on earth. And you get back up. And so a bunch of the chickens that can only get like 3 feet off the ground and they peck at each other. And it's kind of like staying in egotism. And when you learn to fly, and you're not operating like that anymore. And it doesn't affect you. It's just like, oh, it's a bunch of chickens flapping their wings, right? I found my video from like 4 years ago. I changed the cover because it was just such a horrible, only because anyway, I was working with a web designer and that video came up for some reason, and I don't mind. I usually don't change the cover, but it was called No Flap. And I just thought it was so funny. I'm like, what was I talking about? Oh my gosh. But FLAP, God had given me an acronym for it. Was like, you're in your fear state, your lack, you're asking for scraps or something. And I forget what P was. It's definitely not persevere. It was like pleasing people. It was pleasing people. So don't operate in this old way. Instead, I forget what the other acronym was. It was something like fly, or flap. Instead, it was like, I don't know what the other one was. It was awesome though. I was like, this is a really good acronym. I need to write this down. I think I took a picture of it, but it was like, it would be something like healed. It's been like I'm in a whole state, and I'm not looking externally, and I feel accepted, and I'm in abiding in love. I know whole would be a W before the H, so we're not, anyway, but anyway, you can look that video up. It's only like 15 minutes. So it's on YouTube. Okay, so what I just showed you, and then I'll see. Way 3, persevere. I say you are called and invited to persevere relentlessly, to choose the path of highest love. All right, so that's what we were talking about. I don't know, I don't remember. I mean, I wrote it all a year ago, and then I just did the Audible, and so you'd think I'd remember, but, anyway, so I remember because it came out of me, but I don't remember the exact words I used. So, I put, what God, this is from The Pilgrim's Progress. John Bunyan wrote this. He was an uneducated man, but wrote this profound book that C.S. Lewis talks about. And anyway, he says, what God says is best, though all the men in the world are against it. See, it is kind of like the eagle flying. Oh, that's what they say. Okay, if an eagle, and I think I learned this from a woman, Latoya Okia. I love her, right? She's like, God's washing machine can wash anything out, you know. There ain't no sin too big for God's washing machine. I love that. You know, but she's like, you got to be like an eagle. God shows her these things in vision. So I'm borrowing from her, and it's become part of me. Like, I love her so much. And so here's this eagle, and it says, if you go and fight with a snake on the ground, the snake can start biting and devouring the eagle. But if the eagle comes down and takes the snake up in the air, you know, then that snake can't fight it. It's like the eagle wins, and when it flies higher. Same with a crow. A crow will start pecking on the eagle's back. If the eagle turns around to the crow, its heart is exposed, and the crow can take it. You know, it's just like, that's what the enemy tries to do. He tries to get you to be triggered and get off your high direction that God has called you on, because we're all called with a high calling. In the Bible, it says you're a royal priesthood, and you're co-heirs with Jesus Christ, right? When you ask God to forgive you all your sins and cover you with the blood of Jesus Christ and his righteousness, his righteous robe. I do that because I was taught, this is your divine nature, this is your human nature, God the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. So when priests are giving out a blessing, this is just you making the sign of the cross. Yes, I accept the cross of Jesus Christ in my life, on myself, and I receive this blessing of God taking my human nature and turning it back to the divine nature, and the Holy Trinity working within me, right? And sometimes you'll see this, like a priest will be doing like this, or, you know, I have an icon of Jesus and he's doing that. And so that's the same, human and the divine nature, and he's offering it from God the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And you don't have to make these signs and stuff. You know, there will be other people that try to, you know, take those signs, or I don't know what the peace sign means now, or what, you know, project, whatever, all those projects that are declassified because they never happened, but they still are happening, or whatever. They take a bunch of these symbols, and they try to take like a good book like The Wizard of Oz and use it for their own really sick purposes. But we don't have to talk about that, because it says you don't even have to talk about what they do in the darkness. We're going to fly higher. And so the crow will come at the eagle, and if the eagle turns around and tries to engage with it, then it can take it down. If it just flies higher, the crow can't fly as high as the eagle. Guess what? It falls away. All right. And there's verses like that when it says, resist the devil and he will flee from you. All right. When you not resist it by like trying to arm wrestle with it, but Persevere relentlessly. Okay, this is one of the ways we resist, is what John Bunyan was saying in The Pilgrim's Progress. What God says is best, though all the men in the world are against it. So when Jesus says, store up your treasure in heaven, where all these things cannot come and take it away, well, for where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. He's trying to guard your heart. Proverbs 4:23 is guard your heart above all else. And so look at it like egotism versus soul self, this Holy Spirit indwelling in you. You're like, yes, forgive me for all my sins. Cleanse me from all of them. I repent of all of them. I never want to return to any sin. Sin just means to miss the mark of perfect love. Of course, who wants to go back to any kind of sin? No one. Of course, you could be like, oh, I have to go back to that sin because I'm not going to be filled in any way. But you don't know. Well, we didn't know how this was going to start, right? That's what faith is. You're stepping out into this unknown and you're trusting. Whoops. I don't want to open my headphones because then, anyway, the mic might go off. And anyway, so faith, forward action in trusting Him. So the same is if you were deriving, let's talk about this psychologically or spiritually or personality wise. If you kept deriving your worth by like how many likes you were getting, or how much money you're making, or who you have next to you. Like, oh my gosh, I talked to the cutest guy last weekend. But anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm not trying to date this person. I'm just saying he's very handsome. But it's like, if I just imagine, oh, I have this guy next to me, and it's like, I would never, ever, ever want to try to get my worth from that because something could happen and he could not look like that the next day. And then it's like, am I going to discard my man because he looks different? It's like, so so it is like that. It's understanding the egotism, our own egotism can build up a personality self since we're about 7 years old. Remember before that, you're just like, let's play. You're at the park and you're like, let's swing. You're like, Mommy, I made a best friend. I have a new friend, because you're just being. This is sometimes how it is when we're skating with people. We're just being. And it's like, I don't know their profession. They don't know mine. They don't know, if I'm like a rocket scientist or if I make $1 billion a year or something. We don't know that, and we don't ask because we're just skating, roller skating. I like roller skating, but it's like, and you're just in this flow state, and you're like, oh, you like this too, but you could try to build an identity out of that. Like, how much do you like it? Well, they like it a lot and I like it a lot. And then you're back into the thing where the elements or whatever can destroy that, because you're not your present day personality self. You're so much more. You are, it says when God created Adam and Eve, He breathed a soul into them, right? Well, it says into Adam, but Eve came out of Adam. So we could go into that, but we're not right now. So George Herbert, let's see what he says. We are the trees whom shaking fastens more. I love that. He was a poet, all right? Now, so when you shake a tree and the wind blows it, it learns how to deepen its roots, all right? So like when people try to shake us and make us feel small, then it's like, well, good thing I don't get my identity from there's 4 people that like this video, right? Sometimes it can be like, oh, I put so much work, but then you're like, oh, well, I'm not getting my worth from that anyway. So like, do all for the glory of God, do all for these higher purposes. And that's you learning how to fly higher. I hope you're learning from this video. Okay. All right. Let's see if the Princess and the Pea is in here. Let me see what it says. I might just read part of it so that it's just a long quote. because I don't have it on Project Gutenberg right in front of me, because then I wonder why. Oh, in a slightly different form. Yeah, because it was finished by them in 1875. So the real one is free copyright, because that is free copyright after 1975. So the real princess. Let's see if they have it. I wonder if they call it, instead of the princess and the P, the real princess. Let me see if it is. That's maybe how they just changed the name of it, right? 59. Okay, this is it. This is it. We're going to read just the beginning. So I'm quoting from Hans Christian Andersen fairy tale books, because they this story is free copyright, but however they changed it, maybe this is the only change, is well, I'm going to call it The Princess and the Pea. Okay, and I have a painting of it by Arthur Rackham at my house. It's a big screen that sometimes I have behind me when I'm doing my videos. All right. There once was a prince. Remember how I was reminded earlier that we have a high calling. We're called to be kings and priests, a royal priesthood. That's what it is. And so a priest brings God to the people and the people to God, and a king rules well and is generous and like knows when to say no and knows when to say yes and knows how to take care of the resources that are in that kingdom. Well, that is like your own self as well, and your family and your work environment and your body, let's say. These are all different microcosms of that. And your like how you keep your car clean if you have a car, or whatever else. Like you want to, like, Jesus is the King of Kings. And so he shows all of us everywhere in the world, no matter what your faith practice is, how to walk like a king, how to be a king in your own life, a true king. All right. And so here's a prince, the son of a king, right? Which all of us are this. We're the prince and the princess. And I don't, it's like beyond gender. Psalm 27:10, go look at that. I'm not saying there aren't genders. It's important to be feminine and masculine, and those are really beautiful qualities. Like, and I encourage you to consider it an honor that you are one of those, and to embrace that, and not pretend to be that, but really learn what not toxic masculinity is and toxic femininity, but the real thing. All right, so we'll learn it from this. There was once a prince, and he wanted a princess, because why not? That's who he wants to marry, a princess, right? But then she must be a real princess. He traveled right round the world to find one, but there was always something wrong, right? Those counterfeit relationships. I'm praying all the time about that all counterfeit relationships will fall away from the people that I love and from myself. I had a counterfeit relationship with myself and with food. I thought that I had to carry that weight. And then I found out that I didn't have to carry that weight a long time. That's a Beatles song, but anyway. There were plenty of princesses, but whether they were real princesses, he had great difficulty in discovering, okay? Because in the Bible, it says the enemy appears as an angel of light, just like he did to Adam and Eve. He tempted them to take something less than what they already had access to, and they ought not to have. They brought a fall into a kind of death for all of us. And Jesus came reconciling us, giving us back this Zoe in the word in Greek. It's called life. John 10:10 says this. The thief comes to off us and steal from us and destroy us. I have come that you may have life and have it abundantly, all right? That's the word Zoe. Look that up if you want to do a word study. Anyway, he had great difficulty in discovering. There was always something which was not quite right about them. So at last he had to come home again, right? He had traveled all over looking for this perfect princess, right? I once had this guy that was a friend, and I was given this vision. I was like, it's like you're looking for this. And I just had this knowing. I didn't know why I was saying it to this person, like open my big mouth. But I just trusted God and followed that. But it was like a Barbie doll in a package, with the little Barbie dog next to her and she was just plastic, It reminds me of that because I always get songs, that Radiohead song, fake plastic watering can. Fake Chinese rubber plant. Get rid of yourself. Wears me out. It wears me out. Anyway, it's talking about all these fake things that they look like real things, right? But anyway, so at last he had to come home again. You go back to this home place. And he was very sad because he wanted a real princess so badly, right? There's nothing wrong with that. It says, delight yourself in the Lord. He will give you the desires of your heart. God knows what you really want. Like, go back to God. The Sufi poets say, stop chasing what your mind wants and you'll get what your soul needs. Just give that to God and go, God, like, I pray you increase my wisdom and discernment so I see through all counterfeits and stop going to these fake things. Like, we have these fake $100 bills at my house that my kids got for some, costume or something they were wearing for something. And like, there's just a stack of them in this desk, and the desk goes up and then you see all these oh yeah, those are all fake, but they look pretty real. Anyway, one evening there was a terrible storm. It thundered and lightened, and the rain poured down in torrents. Indeed, it was a fearful night. In the middle of the storm, somebody knocked at the town gate, and the old king himself went to open it. So this is his father, the king. He goes to open it. It's really interesting, right? It was a princess who stood outside, but she was in a terrible state from the rain and the storm. The water streamed out of her hair and her clothes. It ran in at the top of her shoes and out of the heel. But she said that she was a real princess. Like, I am this real princess, right? We shall soon see if that is true, thought the old queen. But she said nothing. So the queen's now involved, right? She went into the bedroom, took all the bedclothes off, all the sheets and stuff, and laid a pea in the bedstead. Then she took 20 mattresses and piled them on top of the pea, and then 20 feather beds on top of the mattresses. So there's mattresses and then 20 more feather beds full of feather, right? This was where the princess was to sleep that night. In the morning, they asked her how she had slept. Okay, I can't finish it but I'll just summarize it. She basically is saying, terribly, I didn't sleep well at all. I couldn't sleep the whole night. I hardly could close my eyes at all, right? She says in this quote, I'll quote, heaven knows what was in the bed. And so she noticed she was lying on something that was hard, even underneath all those mattresses, because she has this spiritual sensitivity that only a true princess can have, right? And so she said she had all these bruises all over her body now from that. It's terrible, terrible, right? And so it's saying that at once they discerned that this must be a true princess, because she could feel that. Nobody but a real princess could have such delicate skin, right? This is just how the spiritual truth is conveyed in this story. So the prince took her to be his wife. Now the man was sure he had found a true princess. So I had no idea we were going to talk about this today. This is like a kingdom spouse prophetic word, and I didn't know it. You know, if you know what that is, then you know what that is. It says this is a true story, and they took the P and put it in a museum. All right, so I didn't take it exact words, but wonderful, wonderful. And so, okay, so in our thing of persevere, I put, now understand logically, follow the logic here. If other people took shortcuts to traumatize us, right, in our past, because this is talking about 12 ways to heal from trauma. That's me. If other people took shortcuts, that's how they traumatize us, because they didn't work on their own inner work. And so they just, like, let's say yelling works, and then they yelled at us and we felt like we weren't worth directing, teaching, disciplining, all this stuff. They just took the shortcut. So we were like, well, I'm not going to yell at my kids. And then you learn to take other shortcuts. You just learned, I'm not worth the long road. I'm worth shortcuts. And so you numb yourself with food or with other addictions or with running after false spirituality or occult things where you can just grab things and you can always just consume. Like, God doesn't work like that. God doesn't want to make you addicted to him. That's why he let someone like St. Paul be out in the ocean and I think he got hit by a cat that 40 lashes minus 1. That's a cat of 9 tails. So it's like 9 whips with glass and stuff on it. You know, so he had lashings all over his back. I think it happened 3 times to him or more. There's a list of everything that happened to him. He's just saying, you know, but I count it all like as nothing compared to serving Christ, right? He gets such this joy in following the Lord, no matter how the enemy tries to distract and attack him and be like the crow pecking at him and getting him off course and helping him, like, not like trying to get him to forget how to be a king in his own life and a queen and a priest. We have this high calling. It says we are ambassadors here, sent by God, and we're meant to have this life that Jesus talked about. It's not a bios life. It's not your biological life. He's awakening the spiritual life that fell from Adam and Eve. He's giving you a way to be reconciled to a perfect God and wake up this life in you. Anyway, now understand logically. So if other people took shortcuts to traumatize us, and they didn't choose the path of highest love, highest wisdom, then you can know logically that as you continuously persevere on the highest love path, the path of highest love, no matter what comes against you, no matter how many tears you cry, that this path is the one that will always unite you to healing. You'll be married to the true princess or the true prince, right? Because you're not taking a shortcut. You're not going, oh, well, that one's really beautiful. I like that guy. Wow. Well, like, we can just say, thank you, God, for creating someone that beautiful. That's not my man, though, thou, and so there's a psalm that I quoted here. Thou wilt show me the path of life. In thy presence is the fullness of joy. Psalm 16:11a. All right. And then the Proverbs. Okay, here's Proverbs wisdom passage. I keep looking up to see if the light goes on for my client, but I'm going to wrap this up. Enter not into the path of the wicked, and go not in the way of evil men. Avoid it, pass not by it, turn from it. An ellipsis. But the path of the just is as the shining light that shineth more and more unto the perfect day. The way of the wicked is as darkness. They know not at what they stumble. That's Proverbs 4:14 through 15a and 18 through 19. Aww. I put my friend Elliott Smith wrote a song called Dancing on the Highway, this higher path of love. I never got to hear his song until after his death. I bawled my eyes out when I heard it, because we'd had conversations, and it was like he encapsulated all of our conversations in that song. It was like, and anyway, there's so many inside, like, not jokes, but messages in it from our conversations. But I pinned it at the top of my page on X for years now. It's still there right now. Let's look at how the scriptures verify and reveal to us something about this beautiful high way of God, of divine love. I love this. So we're just, I don't think I have this in a video, so we're going to add this right now. Isaiah 35, 8 through 10. And an highway shall be there, and a way, and it shall be called the way of holiness. The unclean shall not pass over it, but it shall be for those, the wayfaring men and women, right? Though fools shall not err therein, no lion shall be there, nor any ravenous beast shall go up thereon. It shall not be found there, but the redeemed shall walk there. And the ransomed of the Lord shall return and come to Zion with songs. See, I'm always teaching with songs. And everlasting joy upon their heads. They shall obtain joy and gladness, and sorrow and sighing shall flee away. All right. That's awesome. Okay. And so we learned all about it with The Princess and the Pea. And if you didn't see it, you can watch this again, or go listen to some of the George MacDonald playlists that I have. Because George MacDonald is always conveying this. And C.S. Lewis said, the guy that wrote the Narnia books is C.S. Lewis, the guy that was best friends with J.R.R. Tolkien, whom I love. He said, I've never written a book where I didn't quote directly or indirectly George MacDonald. So all of George MacDonald's books are free. So I read all of those. And I'm glad we got a taste of The Princess and the Pea. I didn't know it was going to end so quickly. But anyway, I wish you so much love. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. Share this with like-minded others that want to find this true, high, holy highway. It's like this trail that I took this picture of that I have on my book, right? Much love.